So have you ever led a meeting and then left that meeting only to realize that very little has happened, even though you just fully dedicated an hour to forward movement and very little has happened since that meeting? Well, if that's ever happened to you, then you'll definitely want to keep watching, because what I'm going to be talking about in today's video is meeting follow through, which I think is like half of the equation when it comes to running an effective team meeting. So if that's something you want to learn more about, then definitely hit on that like and subscribe button and let's get started. Hey there, friend, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new around here, well, my name is Mac and I'm a leadership coach, but I actually work specifically with first-time team managers and helping them to become effective leaders. So today, like I was mentioning in my intro, I really want to talk about meeting follow through, because like I was talking about in my previous video last week, when I was talking about running effective team meetings, I truly believe that like one of the measures of success for an effective team meeting is making sure that you haven't really wasted anybody's time, including your own. And the one way to make sure that you're like wasting everybody's time is to like have a meeting and then have nothing happen from it. So I think we do need to spend some time talking about follow through if we're talking about effective team meetings. And so that's why I wanted to share these 5 tips with you. Tip number 1 when it comes to meeting follow through is wrapping up every single meeting by talking about the action items. So I remember like so long ago when I was back in corporate, we had a consultant come in, and I remember like every time she would facilitate a meeting with our group, she would always be like, all right, guys, so what are the action items here? And I remember thinking to myself, like, why is she doing this? I feel like I have written down all my action items, like I'm good to go. And I was clearly very naive to think that, because after a while of her like doing that consistently, what I realized was happening every single time is that people were hearing different action items. So by her recapping, it made sure that we were actually all in alignment around what the action items were. So make sure that at the end of every single meeting to bring everybody into alignment around what the necessary action items are. And if possible, like I would suggest that you have the team repeat it back to you so that you can hear what their thoughts are in terms of what's the next steps. Like make sure you're not recapping it, make sure that they're recapping it for you. I mean, it's a fantastic coaching opportunity as well, but it also gives you insights in terms of how somebody is listening and what their perspectives are in terms of what the action items are. So tip number 2, when it comes to meeting follow through to that point of the action items, is you weed out the action items from the ideation. Because sometimes what will happen, particularly in ideation type of meetings or even in decision-making meetings where a lot of ideas are coming up, is that people will take the suggestion and opinions that are brought up and run with that. And then like weeks down the road, you'll be like, why are we doing this thing? And they'll be like, well, because you mentioned it in a meeting. And it's like, no, I didn't actually mean that we have to do it. I just was throwing that out there as an idea. Like when you guys are doing the recap, that you're really the one calling out like, hey, that was simply just a suggestion. I don't necessarily think that that's the priority here. The priority here is this. Separating and weeding out the stuff that are suggestions or things that just, came out in the discussion that doesn't necessarily need to be actioned. Tip number 3, when it comes to meeting follow through, is you're assigning some sort of champion or owner to those action items. So it's one thing to have the action items recapped, but it's another thing to have someone owning the outcome of it. We want to make sure that you've assigned someone to do it so that they can champion it all the way through and make sure that they're responsible for, getting all the pieces put together and then reporting on it as time goes on. Now, sometimes what will happen is you'll be sitting in the room and you'll know that there's like an obvious choice in terms of who should champion it or who should be the owner of it, and that person isn't speaking up. If that happens, I don't want you to call that person out in the moment. What I like to do is leave it as an unknown for in that instance in the meeting. And I'll just say, okay, for now, this specific action item doesn't have an owner, but we'll figure this out. This is my action item, that this action item has an owner. And forgive me for using the term action item so many times, but in that meeting right there and then, I'll just say, I know that this doesn't have an owner, but we'll figure it out, and that'll be on me. Like I'll take that responsibility to make sure that somebody owns this. And then what I'll do later on is talk to that individual privately, right? Because maybe that individual doesn't want to be called out like in front of everybody. So privately, I'll talk about why, I feel they would be the right fit to do this thing. I'll listen to their perspective in terms of maybe why they don't think they are. Oftentimes it's because the person doesn't feel like they're equipped, or they don't have the training, or whatever the case might be. So you just want to make sure that you obviously give them the tools and resources that they need, and that you're there to support them in owning that responsibility. But make sure that every single thing that you guys lay out in your recap has somebody that's owning it to the end, and somebody that will be reporting on the status of that as you guys move forward. So tip number 4, when it comes to like meeting follow through, is to actually assign someone on the team to take notes. Now, oftentimes what I've done in the past is just used Otter AI, and I have that running so that it's like taking and dictating the notes for us. So if I know we're going to be in an ideation, and I know that there's going to be a lot of conversation going on, and I want people to be present in that conversation, then I'll just say, hey guys, I'm going to be running Otter in the background, so you don't have to worry about taking notes. Now, oftentimes people will still have their notebooks out, because a lot of people just like to jot things down. Like, that's just how they think. But I don't want them to be so focused on getting everything written down that they're not participating in the conversation. So that's why I'll run Otter in the background, and of course let them know ahead of time that it is being dictated. But in other cases, I'll just say, hey, would you mind so-and-so just taking notes? We have a high level like outline in terms of what we've discussed today, right? And this is really beneficial, because what it does is it allows people who are missing from that meeting to get caught up, right? Because sometimes people are on vacation, or they can't make it, or they're sick, or whatever the case might be. And you still want them to be caught up in terms of what was discussed in that meeting, so that maybe if they have certain action items that have been like put on them, that they know kind of the full picture of what they're being asked to do and how it came to that conclusion. So definitely make sure that there is somebody on the team that's like taking notes. And I wouldn't suggest that be you, just because you're facilitating it and you're kind of leading it. So in order for you to be fully present in leading that meeting, I don't want like your brain energy to be taken up in taking notes. As somebody else who kind of finds joy in that, like I know there's a couple people on my team that just found joy in being able to take down notes. That's like their thing. So definitely find someone that you think on the team would really enjoy that. They're like the designated note taker, unless of course you're having a more robust discussion, then maybe use a tool like Otter AI to dictate those meeting notes for you. Tip number 5, when it comes to meeting follow through, is to create some sort of like centralized hub where you keep all your meeting notes. To that point where I was talking about the fact that, you want to have someone take notes all the time, or have it dictated, you want to make sure that there's actually some place to hold those notes, right? So on my team, we had like a Google Sheet, and every single team meeting or whatever that we had, all the notes would be uploaded in there. And what that did, I found, was like I said, it gives opportunity for people that miss the meeting to get caught up. B, it allows greater follow through, right? Because what you do is you have the key words of that meeting, have it like highlighted in some ways, so that like these are the key things that we need to follow up on the next meeting. And then the other thing it does is it allows the processors in the room to just take a moment, go back through it, and like process anything, and maybe ask questions later to make sure that there is some sort of follow through. Because sometimes people don't follow through because they're not entirely clear on all the details. And even in the room, when they say they understand, maybe they don't. So they just need a little bit of time to process after the fact. And what that centralized hub does is it gives them an opportunity to grab those notes when they need it, look through, skim the keywords, and kind of say like, okay, I got this. I can run with the ball with this. Or I have a couple additional questions that I would like to talk through as it pertains to this specific thing, right? And then of course, if it's in there, then for certainty, like you just pull out those keywords and make sure that it is part of the meeting agenda for the following meeting, so that you are following up on those specific action items. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Those are my 5 tips around meeting follow through. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any other content I share on this platform every single Tuesday. It was fantastic to be with you today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Do not forget to keep smiling, and I'll see you in the next one.